I watched her as she stepped out of the car, the late afternoon sunlight catching her hair and highlighting the sharp cut of her jaw. But it wasn't the way her hair gleamed or the way her skin seemed to radiate that held my attention, it was the scent that filled the air around her. It wasn't the perfume I had bought for her last Christmas, the one that had a gentle floral note she loved so much. No, this was different. This scent hit me like a wall. Heavier. Spicier. More seductive. And I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't for me. I had to force myself to look away as she made her way up the porch steps, the rhythmic click of her heels on the concrete, a sound I had come to associate with comfort, with routine. But today, it was different. She didn't seem like the same woman who kissed me goodnight the night before. There was something distant in her eyes, a detachment I couldn't quite place. As she entered the house, I could feel my chest tightening. There it was again, her perfume. But this time, it felt like a sign. A sign that something was wrong, and I had missed it. I stood frozen in the doorway, fighting the urge to call out to her, to ask her if everything was okay. But I knew better. She had changed. There was something off, and I could no longer ignore it. I thought back to last night, to the way she had kissed me goodbye. Her lips had been soft, but there was a hesitation there, a moment's pause I had brushed off in the flurry of our usual evening routine. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been left unsaid, something important that I had overlooked. "Are you all right?" I had asked as I handed her coat to her, but she had only smiled, that same smile she always gave when she didn't want to talk about something. "I'm fine, just tired," she had said, as though the words were a rehearsed answer. And I had let it slide, as I always did. Because she was fine, wasn't she? She had to be. We were fine. But the perfume was a red flag I couldn't ignore anymore. I moved into the kitchen, the scent still lingering in my nostrils. It was thick, intoxicating. I opened the refrigerator without thinking, searching for something, anything, to occupy my mind. But nothing could drown out the thoughts swirling in my head. Her new perfume, it wasn't a gift from me. I knew that. She had made no mention of it. And the way it clung to her, the way it didn't fade when she left the room, told me that it was fresh. New. And not from the perfume counter at the department store where we usually shop together. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to face the gnawing suspicion growing inside me. But I couldn't stop myself. There was no escaping it. There was no ignoring it. I could hear her moving around upstairs now, the faint sound of footsteps on the wooden floorboards above. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that she had changed. And I had no idea when it happened or why I hadn't noticed sooner. Maybe I had been too caught up in the rush of daily life, too focused on the small details of our house, our bills, our routine. But now, this perfume, the perfume that didn't belong to me, the perfume that had never been a part of us, was the only thing I could focus on. I tried to steady my breath, to calm the rising panic that had started to form in my chest. But it was like I could see everything differently now. The way she had been avoiding my gaze for the past few weeks. The way her phone seemed to buzz more than usual, with messages she didn't want me to see. The way she'd started working late and coming home exhausted, but still with that same perfume lingering on her skin. I knew, in some quiet corner of my mind, that this wasn't about a new scent. It was about a new life. A life I hadn't been a part of. A life she hadn't shared with me. I wiped my hand across my face, trying to focus. I had to confront this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when nothing about her, nothing about us, felt the same anymore. I had to ask her about the perfume. I had to know. I felt my feet move toward the staircase, my heart pounding harder with each step I took. The door to our bedroom was cracked open, and I could see her through the small gap, standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her blouse. She was looking at herself with an intensity one had never seen before. She didn't even hear me approach. "Emma," I said, my voice hoarse, not knowing how I was going to say the next words, but unable to hold them back any longer. "We need to talk." She froze, her hand hovering just above the collar of her blouse. Slowly, she turned to face me, that familiar smile creeping back onto her lips. But it wasn't a smile that reassured me. It was the kind of smile that tried too hard to cover something up. Something she was hiding. "About what?" she asked, her voice light, casual. Too casual. I stared at her, my mind racing. I should have said something else. I should have kept the questions about the perfume in my head for a little longer. But the words came tumbling out, before I could stop them. "Where did you get the perfume?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "It's not from me. It's not from the store we always go to. So, where did you get it?" Her eyes widened for just a moment, but it was enough. Enough to confirm what I already knew. She wasn't surprised that I had noticed. She was only trying to figure out how to lie to me. How to keep the secret from me just a little longer. She started, her words trailing off as though she were choosing them carefully. I don't remember where I got it, actually. It's just a new scent I wanted to try. But I knew that wasn't true. I could see it in her eyes. She had rehearsed this lie, too. It wasn't a new scent she wanted to try. It was a gift from someone else. Someone who had a hand in choosing it, someone who had been close enough to know exactly what she needed. Someone who wasn't me. I couldn't look at her. Not anymore. Not after what I knew. The pieces had fallen into place, and I couldn't unsee them. She was cheating on me. And the perfume was the evidence I couldn't ignore. The air felt thick as I stood in that doorway, staring at her with my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the soft tick of the clock on the wall in our living room. But it was all background noise now, just static to drown out the questions pounding inside my head. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that the woman I'd shared everything with, the one I'd promised myself to, the one I thought I knew better than anyone, was hiding something like this from me. But her face, the way she was looking at me, like she was waiting for me to drop it, to pretend it wasn't there, only confirmed my worst fears. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't stand to see the lie in her eyes, the way she was trying to play it off as though it was nothing. As if the perfume wasn't a symbol of something bigger, something deeper, something that had been festering between us for who knows how long. I don't remember where I got it, she repeated, almost too calmly. Her hand dropped to her side, and for the briefest moment, I could see her shoulders relax. She wasn't worried. She wasn't even nervous. She was acting as though nothing had changed. Like this was just another day. It's just something new I wanted to try. I felt my chest tighten with anger. I didn't know where it was coming from, but it was there, bubbling beneath the surface. All I could think about was the scent. The damn perfume. The scent of a stranger lingering on her skin, and how it never seemed to fade no matter how long she'd been home. I crossed my arms tightly, unable to stop myself from feeling the heat rise in my face. I wanted to scream, to shout, but what good would it do? What could I say that would make her face the truth? She had been hiding it, whatever it was, for so long, and now it was just spilling out like an open wound I didn't know how to treat. Emma, my voice cracked slightly as I spoke her name, the weight of it heavier than it had ever been. Don't lie to me. I know that perfume isn't from me. And I know you didn't buy it yourself. I took a step closer, my voice harder now, determined to make her see. You've been hiding something from me. Haven't you? She froze, her eyes flicking to the side, to the floor, anywhere but at me. It was a small movement, but it said more than enough. The silence that filled the space between us felt like it stretched on forever, suffocating. I waited, praying that the woman I loved would look me in the eye and tell me the truth. The whole truth. Finally, she spoke, but her voice didn't sound like her own. It was quieter now, softer, like she was afraid of what would happen if she said too much. I'm not hiding anything, she said, but there was a tremble in her words. You're just overthinking it. I'm just tired, okay? I've been working long hours and... Stop. I cut her off, the desperation finally leaking into my voice. Don't feed me that. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I've been noticing the little things. The way you've been pulling away from me. The way you don't look at me the same anymore. I stepped even closer, now only inches away from her, my breath shallow, my heart racing. And now, the perfume. Emma, tell me the truth. Who is he? She flinched as though I had slapped her, and for a moment, I saw real fear in her eyes. It was only there for a second, but it was enough to make everything inside me freeze. The tremble in her voice wasn't just from fear of being caught, it was fear of something deeper. Something she hadn't wanted to admit. I didn't know why, but I could sense it. Whatever she had been hiding from me was something that terrified her. But instead of answering, she stepped back, away from me, her hand instinctively reaching for the door handle. I watched her, feeling like the floor beneath me had turned to quicksand. Every movement she made felt like a betrayal, like she was slipping further and further out of my grasp. I'm sorry, she said, her words barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for this to happen. Her apology hit me like a blow to the chest. She wasn't sorry for lying, not really. She was sorry because she had been caught. Sorry because the truth was starting to come out, but not because she had hurt me. She had no idea how much this was hurting me. Or maybe she did. Sorry for what? I asked, my voice colder than I intended, but I didn't care anymore. The hurt was making me angry. Sorry for the lies? Sorry for the secrets? Or are you sorry for the man whose suit you're wearing and the perfume you're wearing that isn't mine? She went pale at the mention of the suit. I could see the guilt flash across her face, and my stomach twisted. I had been right all along. I knew it. I should have known. She had been seeing someone else. And all this time, I had been the fool, blind to it, too consumed by my own excuses to see what was right in front of me. I never meant for you to find out this way, she whispered, her voice barely audible now. It's complicated. I don't know what to say. I wanted to yell at her, to demand answers. I wanted to scream that she had destroyed everything I thought we had, but I couldn't. Instead, I just stood there, watching her, my heart breaking. She had already made her choice. The fact that she couldn't even bring herself to admit it to me, the truth, told me everything I needed to know. She had already left me. Maybe physically, maybe emotionally, but she was gone. Who is he, Emma? I asked again, this time barely able to get the words out, my throat tight with emotion. Her gaze flickered away, like she couldn't bear to look at me any longer. Then, in a voice so soft I almost didn't hear it, she said, his name is Chris. I didn't mean for it to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. Chris. The name cut through me like a knife. I didn't know who he was, but it didn't matter. The truth was right there, and it was more painful than anything I had imagined. I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me, and I didn't know how to carry it. All these years together, all the trust we had built, shattered in an instant. She was having an affair. She had fallen for someone else, and I had been too blind to see it until now. The tears that welled in my eyes weren't from the shock of learning she was with someone else. No, they came from the realization that she had chosen him. Chosen him over me. And no amount of perfume, no amount of apologies, would ever change that. I turned and walked out of the room, the door clicking shut behind me, leaving her alone with her lies. Leaving her with the man who wasn't me. The woman I loved was gone. The house felt quieter now, more oppressive somehow. I stood in the middle of the living room, unsure of what to do next. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating me with the weight of everything that had just come to light. I couldn't even remember when I had last felt this alone. The air was thick, heavy with tension, and I could hear the distant hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen again, like it was mocking me, a reminder of how life just went on, indifferent to what was breaking apart in the rooms of this house. I hadn't moved from the spot where I'd been standing when Emma had told me the truth, but now, I felt the need to move, to escape. I grabbed my keys off the counter and walked out the door without a second thought. The world outside didn't seem any better, but at least it wasn't here. At least there, I wouldn't have to look at her face, the face of the woman who had, just a few hours ago, been my everything. It was dark out, the street lights flickering in the growing cold. The night felt like a metaphor for my life now, uncertain, shadowed, with no clear direction ahead. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to leave. I had to put some distance between me and this house, between me and her, before I exploded. I ended up driving aimlessly through town, the streets lit by neon signs and the occasional car passing by, all people living their lives, none of them knowing the wreckage I felt inside. I drove past places we used to go together, restaurants, parks, even the small corner cafe where we had met for the first time. It felt like the universe was mocking me, reminding me of everything I had once held dear. Everything that no longer felt real. When I finally stopped at a gas station, I sat in my car for a few minutes, just staring at the empty parking lot. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles had turned white. I wanted to scream, to let the anger out, but I couldn't. Instead, I let my head fall against the back of the seat, eyes closed, trying to remember a time when I hadn't been consumed by this overwhelming feeling of betrayal. There was a time when I had known what I wanted, when life had seemed simple, when Emma and I had been a team. I had been proud of that. Proud of us. But now everything felt like a lie. The house, the car, the life we had built together, it all felt like a mirage, something I dreamt up to keep me distracted from the reality that I wasn't enough for her. I wasn't enough to hold her. To make her stay. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but I had to. There was only one person who might understand, who might help me make sense of this. I tapped out a text to my best friend, Jared. I need to talk. It's bad. I didn't even wait for his reply before I drove to his place. He lived on the other side of town, a small house with old furniture, books stacked everywhere, and the faint smell of coffee always in the air. He was one of the few people I could turn to, someone who knew me better than anyone else. He knew Emma, too, but I had a feeling this conversation would be different. This wasn't going to be about her bright smile or the way she could make everyone around her feel comfortable. No, this was going to be about the woman who had shattered everything I believed in. When I pulled into Jared's driveway, the porch light flicked on, and I saw him standing at the door, his eyes scanning the street. I could already see the concern in his face as he took in the state I was in, disheveled, distant, broken. He didn't say anything as I got out of the car and walked toward him, just pulled me into a tight hug, like he knew this was a moment I needed without needing to hear the details. "Come inside," he said softly, letting me go but guiding me toward the door. I followed him, grateful for the quiet support he was offering, even before I had said a word. Jared's living room was warm, with soft lights and a couch that felt like a safe haven, a place where I could escape from everything outside. He gestured for me to sit, and I did, dropping heavily onto the cushions. He sat across from me, his eyes never leaving mine. I could feel the weight of the silence before he spoke, the air thick with anticipation. "So, what happened?" he asked gently, his voice calm but concerned. He knew me well enough to understand I didn't want to dive right into it, but I couldn't avoid the truth forever. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to steady my voice, but it still trembled when I spoke. "Emma, she's been seeing someone else." Jared's eyes widened, and he opened his mouth to say something, but I held up my hand to stop him. I wasn't ready for his questions yet, not until I had gotten everything out. "She bought a new perfume," I said, my voice shaking. "A perfume that wasn't for me. And when I confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She told me everything. She's been seeing someone else, his name's Chris." I paused, waiting for the weight of the words to settle between us, but there was no comforting silence now. Just the aching truth. "Jared? I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am without her." Jared stayed silent for a moment, processing what I'd said. Finally, he leaned forward, his face serious. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. But you know this isn't about you. It's about her. She chose to do this. You didn't ask for it. You didn't deserve it." I nodded, but it didn't make me feel any better. It didn't change the fact that she had broken me. That the person I had loved, the person I thought I knew better than anyone else, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I thought I was enough for her, I muttered, the words escaping before I could stop them. I gave her everything. I did everything for her. How could she do this to me? Jared sat back, his eyes filled with sympathy. "You were enough, man. This isn't about you. This is about her choices, her mistakes. And you can't fix them. All you can do is figure out how to move forward, even if that means letting her go." I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear that I had to let her go. But deep down, I knew he was right. Emma had already made her decision. She had chosen Chris, and now, there was nothing left for me but to move on. I spent the next few hours talking it out with Jared. He didn't have all the answers, but he didn't need to. All I needed was someone to listen, someone to remind me that I wasn't crazy for feeling hurt, that my anger and pain were valid. And in that moment, it was enough. When I finally left Jared's house, I knew things weren't going to be okay anytime soon. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but at least I wasn't walking it alone. I had a friend who would help me pick up the pieces, no matter how long it took. I started my car and drove home, knowing it was the hardest part one had left to face. I had to walk back into that house, back into the life Emma and I had built together, and face the aftermath of the choices she had made. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew it had to be said. The truth had come out, but now I had to decide how I would move forward from here. The house was just as I'd left it. Silent. Cold. It didn't feel like home anymore. The empty air seemed to echo with the weight of all the unspoken words, all the unsaid apologies, all the secrets that had grown like weeds in our garden of lies. I had always imagined returning home after a hard day's work, but today was different. Today, it felt like I was walking into an unfamiliar place. Everything that had once felt like mine now felt so distant, like it belonged to someone else. The door clicked shut behind me with a hollow sound. I didn't know where to start. I had no idea what I was even doing here. Part of me wanted to just leave again, to get back in the car and drive until I couldn't remember the road that led back to this house. But another part of me, the part that was still holding on to some thread of hope, knew I had to confront it. I kicked off my shoes by the door and stood there, feeling the chill that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. There were no signs of her, no perfume bottles, no makeup left out, no hints of her presence. Just the stark reality that she wasn't here. She hadn't been here when I left, and she wasn't here now. I moved through the living room, staring at the things that used to make this place feel like a home. The old, worn couch where we'd curled up together during the weekends, the pictures on the wall that once reflected a life full of joy, the empty space where her shoes used to lie, discarded after a long day. Now, all of it seemed like a cruel joke. The things we had built together felt like ghosts, reminders of a past that was slipping away. I took a deep breath and walked down the hallway toward our bedroom. Each step felt like I was getting closer to an inevitable confrontation with the truth I wasn't ready to face. As I opened the door, I half expected to see her there, sitting on the edge of the bed, a look of guilt in her eyes. But the room was empty, as it had been for the past few days. I ran my fingers along the side of the bed, brushing against the soft fabric of the sheets. I hadn't made the bed this morning. I'd barely even noticed it, but now the thought hit me like a wave, she hadn't made it either. She'd been gone. Her absence was glaring. The silence around me felt suffocating. I walked over to the dresser and opened the top drawer, the one where we kept our most personal things: clothes, jewelry, notes, letters. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but the act of going through it felt like I was trying to find something I'd missed. A sign. A reason. Anything that could explain how we had gone from being the couple everyone envied to this broken mess. And then, my eyes landed on it. It was a small, square envelope, wedged in between a pair of her favorite scarves. I knew immediately what it was. I had never seen it before, and yet, something about it felt familiar. My heart skipped as I picked it up. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, Emma's. I sat down on the edge of the bed, holding the envelope in my hands as if it was some kind of fragile artifact. Part of me wanted to rip it open, to read the words that would make everything make sense. But another part of me hesitated, knowing that the truth, no matter how much I longed for it, might break me even more than I already was. I tore open the envelope slowly, my fingers trembling as I unfolded the letter inside. I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you. But I need to be honest with you about something. I've been seeing someone else. His name is Chris. I don't know what's happened between us, but I can't lie to you anymore. I love him. I always will. Please forgive me for the way I've hurt you. You deserve someone who can love you fully, without any lies. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't breathe. I could barely see past the blur of tears that were welling in my eyes. The pain of reading that letter, of knowing that she had already made up her mind, that she had already moved on, was unbearable. And yet, somehow, I couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't stop letting the words sink deeper into my soul. I'm sorry I couldn't be the woman you needed me to be. But I have to be true to myself now. Please understand that this isn't because I don't care about you. It's just that I'm not the same person anymore. I don't know what that means for us. I don't know what happens next, but I can't keep pretending. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how long I sat there, reading those words over and over again. I didn't know how long I stayed on the bed, clutching the letter like it was a lifeline. But what I did know was that this was the moment everything changed. I had been clinging to a life that no longer existed. I had been holding on to a woman who had already let go. The realization cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. The minutes turned into hours as I sat in the stillness of the room, the letter still in my hands, as if the paper itself could somehow ease the pain. But it didn't. It couldn't. No amount of words, no matter how carefully chosen, could make up for the betrayal I felt. No amount of apologies could take away the feeling that I had been blind to the truth for far too long. I looked around the room, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of anger. Not just at Emma, but at myself. At the fact that I had allowed myself to become so absorbed in the life we had built, so convinced that everything was fine, that I hadn't seen the cracks in the foundation. I had loved her. I had given her everything. But now, it felt like I had nothing left to give. I folded the letter carefully, placing it back in the envelope. As I stood up from the bed, I realized that there was one thing I had to do. One thing I couldn't ignore any longer. I had to let her go. I had to let go of the life I thought we had. And I had to start healing, even if I didn't know where to begin. As I left the bedroom, the house still felt as cold as ever. But now, it felt like the last remnants of her were fading away. The life we had built together was no more, and all that was left was the painful truth. The truth I had been avoiding for so long. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me. It was about rebuilding the life I had lost. And it had to start now. The next few days were a blur of emotions, like I was walking through thick fog. I didn't know what was real anymore. I didn't know where I was supposed to go or what I was supposed to feel. One minute, I was angry, burning with the need to confront Emma and demand answers for everything that had been left unsaid. The next, I was numb, staring at the walls of the house, trying to grasp the pieces of my life that felt like they had been scattered too far to put back together. I didn't hear from her for a while. Not that I expected to. I didn't even know what I would say to her anymore. Every word I had rehearsed in my mind felt like it would just fall flat, like it didn't matter anymore. It didn't change what had happened. It didn't change the fact that she had made her choice. Chris was in her life now, and I was the ghost of a past she no longer wanted. But as the days stretched into weeks, something started to shift in me. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't some sudden moment of clarity or grace. But slowly, I started to realize something. I had been drowning in her absence, but I hadn't given myself a chance to breathe. I spent those days sorting through the wreckage, both of my heart and my home. I packed up old memories, old letters, old gifts we had exchanged, things I had once cherished, now just reminders of a love that had slipped away. Each item I boxed up was like pulling out a shard of glass from my chest. But with each one, I felt lighter. I found myself at the edge of a precipice, facing down the harsh truth of what had happened. But in the quiet, in the solitude, I started to see something I hadn't noticed before, me. Not the me that had been a part of us, but the me that had existed before Emma. The me that had loved fiercely, worked tirelessly, dreamed big, and lived for something beyond the walls of a relationship. For so long, I had defined myself through her. Through our shared life, our shared future. But now, I was forced to redefine who I was outside of her, outside of everything I had thought I wanted. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when the grief would hit, when the pain would come crashing down like waves on the shore. But with each wave, I was learning to swim again. I started taking long walks in the mornings, just to clear my head. I spent more time with friends I had neglected over the years, those people who had seen me when I was just me, long before I had met Emma. I spent hours at the gym, working out the frustration that I couldn't seem to shake. I read books I had meant to read for years but never had the time to. I even started cooking again, experimenting with new recipes and rediscovering the joy I once found in it. But the most important thing I did was face the mirror. I hadn't realized how much I had avoided looking at myself. I had been so consumed with Emma and the life we'd built that I hadn't given myself permission to feel anything else. But now, standing alone in the bathroom, looking at the reflection of the man I used to be and the man I was becoming, I saw something different. I saw someone worthy of love, not just from others, but from myself. It was in that moment that I realized something profound. I didn't need Emma to complete me. I didn't need her approval or her affection to feel whole. I had been whole all along. And while the pain of losing her would never fully go away, I would eventually be okay. I knew it would take time, lots of time. But I was no longer afraid of the future. I had been living in the shadow of our past, but now, for the first time, I was stepping into the light of my own future. It wasn't going to be easy, and there were still nights where I would wake up to the haunting echo of her absence. But I was learning to live with it, to accept it, to make peace with it. One afternoon, a few weeks after everything had fallen apart, I received a message from her. It was simple, almost too simple. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a moment, unsure of what I felt. Part of me wanted to say no, to close that door forever. But another part of me wanted closure, wanted to hear from her directly, to see if there was any part of her left that still cared, that still recognized the person I used to be. So, I agreed. We met at a cafe, a neutral place where neither of us could hide behind the comfort of our old home, our old routines. When I saw her, my heart twisted. She looked the same, but there was something different about her. Her eyes, usually so full of warmth, were now distant, and I could sense the weight of the decisions she had made pressing down on her. She had always been the one who held the power in our relationship, the one who could make everything feel right with just a smile or a touch. But now, she seemed smaller somehow. Vulnerable. We sat across from each other in silence for a long time, the clinking of coffee cups the only sound between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than I remembered. "I'm sorry, Matt. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I needed to say that." I nodded, trying to keep my composure, but inside, my heart was breaking all over again. "I don't want your apology," I said quietly. "You don't owe me that. What's done is done." I paused, the words hanging in the air between us. "I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm done. I'm letting go." She looked at me, her face filled with so many emotions, regret, sorrow, longing. But there was no turning back now. There was nothing left to fix. We had reached the end of our story. "I know," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know that I still care about you. I always will. I never wanted to hurt you." The truth hit me like a freight train, and for a moment, I wanted to scream at her for all the pain she had caused me, for everything we had lost. But then I took a deep breath. I had to let it go. For my own sake. I didn't say anything after that. There was nothing left to say. We sat in silence for a little longer, and then I stood up to leave. As I walked out of the cafe, the weight of everything that had happened settled in my chest, but it didn't feel quite as heavy as it had before. I wasn't running from it anymore. I was accepting it. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, I was ready to face it.